Alright, hello, citizens of the Nigerverse. It is Niger once again, and this is going to be another movie review. So, we are continuing to look at Christmas movies for the month of December, and even though Christmas is pretty much over, or is come and gone, we still got some more Christmas movies to give you all that continued holiday spirit. And this one is one I haven't seen in a while. It's been a little while, but it's time to get in touch with your inner elf. Because I am about to review Elf, of course. So, as always, I'm not a professional movie reviewer, analyst, or anything like that. Just a man who enjoys a good time, and I had an okay time with this movie. Now, oh, being older gives you a different perspective on things versus when you're a kid. Does this movie still hold up now that I am much older and it's been so long since I've seen this movie? Let's find out. So, of course, if you've seen these reviews of mine before, you kind of already oh jeez, my goodness, I'm sorry, but you kind of already know how this works, and I do tend to do that from time to time. Of course, if you've seen these reviews of mine before, but if you are indeed new here, first of all, sorry you had to see that. But I talk about what I liked about the movie, what I disliked. But first, we do a quick little plot summary. So let's get into said plot summary. So we start off by recounting how our main character, her Buddy, the elf, came to be. Except Buddy is actually a human, and he snuck into Santa's sack of toys. He saw a teddy bear, so he snuck in, and while at an orphanage, he snuck into the sack of toys. Santa actually brings him back with him to the North Pole. My question is, A, how did Buddy survive at the high altitude? He's just a baby. B, how did Santa not hear him? Even if you could say, oh, all the snow and the travel and everything made it hard for him to hear. C, how did Santa? Well, the counter B, I guess. How did Santa not hear the baby move or breathe or anything like that when picking up his sack? But now back to C. How does Santa not feel the heavy weight difference of a baby? Something else he shouldn't have dropped off. On his way back to the North Pole? And D, how did he not look inside his sack as he was visiting the other houses? Because there's still a lot of toys in the sack and everything that to drop off to the other houses. How did he not go through his entire sack, empty it out, and then see the baby in there? But nevertheless, I know. Logistically, yeah, if logic were to come into play, the story wouldn't work and everything. But just putting it out there. But anyway, so nevertheless, Santa takes the baby back to the North Pole. Accidentally kidnaps the baby. They decide to raise it there. Here he is raised by Papa Elf. Buddy is, of course, because he's a human, he is much bigger than the other elves, and so it leads to him being almost kind of an outcast and having a hard time with the elves' jobs, that being like sorting the mail or like putting the toys together, stuff like that. And so Buddy's having a bit of a tricky time, ultimately he finds out he's a human. He accidentally hears the elves discuss that baby they brought in some years ago. He goes to Papa Elf, and Papa Elf pretty much breaks down that yes, Buddy is indeed a human. He tells him who his birth parents are. His mother, Susan Wells, she's deceased, but she dropped him put him up for adoption, I should say, before she died. And his father, Walter Hobbs, doesn't know about Buddy's existence, and never knew that Susan had a baby. And Walter Her works as a children's book publisher in New York City. But there's also another problem. He is on the naughty list. He's been on the naughty list for a little while, and soon you will find out why as we continue the movie. But he decides he's going to head to New York City, more specifically the Empire State Building, where Walter works. Thankfully, it's not a different Walter that produces something else, but I have never seen Breaking Bad, so I'm not qualified to make that joke. But nevertheless, as he heads to New York, to find his father, he shows up in New York. Accidentally gets into it with a raccoon at first. As he tries to hug the raccoon. Thankfully, the raccoon doesn't have a gun with him like Rocket did. But nevertheless, as Buddy makes his way to the main part of New York and kind of gets up to shenanigans there. It's very much like a fish out of water scenario where Buddy is doing all these things, doesn't really realize what it is. I know that he wanted to visit his father and everything, but they couldn't have set him aside and broken down kind of like human culture and everything, especially Santa, who states he's been in New York several times, but nevertheless, Buddy eventually finds Empire State Building, finds his dad, finds Walter, that is. Also, it's worth mentioning, Buddy is in his elf costume the entire time. He heads there in the elf costume, so they think it's a Christmas gram at first, but once he mentions his mother, Susan Wells, he is ejected. Walter has him ejected. They essentially think he's crazy, which kind of fair. They obviously don't really know what he's don't really know what's going on. Buddy eventually finds a Gimbel's department store, which apparently was a real department store. Obviously, he doesn't look like it's around anymore, or shut down in 1987, and which was well before, well after, I should say, this movie came out. This movie came out in 2003, but or actually maybe it didn't go out over the sale. Yeah. So it said that it went defunct in 1987. So, interesting how it was still around up until in past 2003. But anyway, he finds the department store. He falls in love with one of the workers named Jovi. He is accidentally mistaken for an employee, so Buddy works there? Question mark. He's mistaken by his manager Wanda. So he does things. He learns that Santa's coming tomorrow, and so he's excited because he thinks it's the real Santa Claus, the one who lives in the North Pole. But no, instead it's a guy dressed up as Santa Claus. So Buddy causes an issue, saying that the guy playing Santa Claus is a fake, rips his beard off. So they get into a fight, they get into a brawl. Thankfully not as bad as any of the CM Punk ones in AEW. But anyway, they get into a fight. Buddy is fired again? Question mark. He's kicked out, sent to jail, and Walter has to bail him out. They take a DNA test. They take a very quick DNA test. As they get the results within the same day. I'm not 100% aware how DNA tests fully work, but I know it takes a little bit longer than that. I think at least I think I do. Maybe there are same day DNA tests, but nevertheless, it is confirmed that Buddy is indeed his son, and so the doctor tells Walter to take him home, introduce him to the family. He does. Walter takes Buddy home. He meets Walter's wife Emily and his son Michael, who is obviously technically Buddy's half brother. But Buddy essentially It's up to some mischief because as he's kind of weird, including putting syrup and everything on everything, because that's because sugar, junk food, stuff like that is what the elves feed on in the North Pole. It's considering Buddy's a human. How is his immune system not messed up? Like look, I kind of have a sweet tooth as well. I'm not gonna lie, but I know I have to balance it out with other actual real foods and stuff like that. But I guess Christmas magic. I know I shouldn't be taking it 100% seriously, but I got questions. That's all. I got questions, but nevertheless, as Michael and Buddy. At first, Michael's kind of put off by his behavior, his quirks, his mannerisms, and everything. But eventually, they warm up. Eventually, they kind of warm up to each other, especially when they fight off a gang of bullies with snowballs. Meanwhile, we do see at Walter's job that he fails to get that his latest book that he's published, excuse me, is kind of a failure, or it's not very good, especially with some pages missing. So he's got to come up with a new book by Christmas Eve. So Walter tries to bring in a ghostwriter, that being Miles Finch, which they treat as like a big deal. So Miles Finch, I guess, is the equivalent of a very famous author. I guess similar to who I would say maybe J.K. Rowling or George R.R. Martin. And admittedly, kind of unfamiliar with like the major names in the literary space, which says a little bit more about me than I would care to admit. But try not to judge me too hard in the comments, will you? But as Walter, so that Buddy doesn't cause any trouble at home, brings him to work with him and has him work down in the in the mailroom. But that goes awry, especially after Buddy gets drunk and gets up to drunken antics with the other mailroom workers. But then he then comes in, and during the meeting with Miles Finch, who does come in, and so Miles Finch is portrayed by Peter Dinklage, who of course is very small. He's small, he's a dwarf, so or the actor, which we'll get to later on. I'm not saying that as an insult to Peter Dinklage, of course, but just saying that he's very small. So Buddy mistakes him for an elf. They get to fighting. Miles leaves, and so Walter is very upset. So he snaps, tells Buddy to get out of his life. Essentially, he's very upset. So Buddy leaves. He writes a letter on Etch-a-Sketch, pretty much saying that he's leaving out, which is very impressive to be able to do that with an Etch-a-Sketch. Now, I know it's probably because he grew up with elves, he hangs around elves, but man, that is still pretty impressive. Like me, I always sucked when it came to Etch-a-Sketches. Like drawing everywhere else, I was better with. I was better than the Etch-a-Sketch, but the Etch-a-Sketch was pretty tricky to draw on. But Buddy writes the whole letter, pretty much leaving out Michael finds a note. Pretty much tells Walter about it. Walter is in the middle of another meeting, so great, another one of his sons interrupted his meetings. But Michael pretty much makes Walter realize that he cares too much about work. He's a workaholic, and so Walter essentially quits because as his boss says, it's either him or his son or his job, which of course, as a father, you should know what the obvious answer to that is, but ultimately, yes, Walter does quit. They go to find Buddy. He who has head towards Santa Claus because Santa's sleigh has crashed in Central Park, hurt because Santa lost his engine, in which is needed for the flight due to the lack of Christmas spirit. Now, that was something that was brought up earlier in the movie, that less and less people believe in Santa Claus, and so the Christmas spirit is running out, and so it's making making the sleigh not function as well, not fly as well. So, Buddy has to go repair it. Walter and Michael show up. Walter and Buddy reconcile. Walter sees Santa Claus, hates him, so he knows that Buddy was telling the truth about being an elf the whole time. Technically, yeah. So they help Santa out. How everybody's gathered around because they spotted Santa Claus. Ovi. Yeah, who I should mention, her and Buddy kind of fell in love. They went out on a date, ate and everything. Which is why Buddy came up to tell Walter about it during his meeting with Miles Finch. But she sings Santa Claus is coming to town, and gets everybody else to sing it as well. Which lifts the Christmas spirit and allows Santa to fly off and everything. And Santa is also like potentially him being there is on the news because nobody knows for sure, but that they believe they saw Santa Claus. But eventually Santa Claus gets the power, flies off. They do fight off the Central Park Rangers, which they're gunning for Santa because they were all put on the naughty list. Is why did Santa just put all the Central Park Rangers on the naughty list? Obviously it's explained in the movie, but all of the Central Park Rangers, even like new guy that shows up, had nothing to do with what got the other Rangers on the naughty list. Just nope, you're a Central Park Ranger now. It's your first day. Oh, too bad, you're on the naughty list automatically. But yeah, Santa flies off. So Buddy he then moves back and forth between the North Pole and New York to spend time with both families. Essentially, Walter starts his own potion company, posted a book called Elf, pretty much based off of Buddy and his story, that being an elf that shows up in New York and everything, and looking for his father, that's successful. And Buddy and Jovi have a daughter, and they visit Papa Elf. So that's kind of how the movie ends. So like I said, Buddy kind of moves between his two families, and yeah, so that is how the movie ends. So starting with I guess what I liked here, Will Ferrell as Buddy. Seeing some of the antics he gets up to and everything, I think in terms of casting, Will Ferrell, just like his personality as acting chops, I think pulls off the role relatively well. You kind of see the best of both worlds. You see like the zany side, but you also see like the curious and even sad at points times when it comes to Buddy. And you kind of see how, and you kind of see kind of the best of both worlds. So you do kind of warm up to Buddy in that regard, and having Walter as kind of like the straight man to Buddy's antics, I think the way they're able to ping off each other, I think works relatively well for the most part. And you see Walter as not 100% evil bad guy, just very work obsessed and workaholic, which I guess him not spending enough time with his family, he is what gets him on the naughty list. But also very work driven and kind of very staunch, very stoic in a lot of ways, which like I said does kind of play into Buddy's antics and everything, and how it affects that dynamic. So I think their dynamic for the most part works in that regard. Jovi and Buddy, their chemistry, you see that kind of built up as well. So Buddy, seeing how he interacts and everything with the circumstances and the world around him, I think works well for the most part, especially with like the zany antics and like I said, and very much kind of a fish out of water situation. But I think for the most part it works. Seeing like Buddy not great at everything, but seeing the stuff he is great at, such as like decoration, having like the Christmas decor and everything, how he turns around the department store and decks that all out, which he does. As he does sleep overnight in the department store, and he does walk in on Joey showering, which yikes, but it's fine because it's cute. It's romance blossoming, and he says because she has a sweet voice, but again, that fish out of water, Buddy not really knowing but I think that you probably should. But anyway, so seeing how that plays out, I think is what is one of the main things I think that makes the movie work, and one of the main things that makes Buddy work essentially as a character for the most part. In terms of what I didn't quite like, Buddy's antics do get a little much at times. Like it does get a little. It does admittedly get a little bit grating at times. I think a little too much of it. It's not enough to where you start to root against Buddy, but like once you notice that it's starting to get being laid on a little bit thick, it's one of those things you can't really unnotice in a way, if that makes any sense, which it probably doesn't. But that and the movie is paced a little bit weird. Like the back end of the movie, after Walter and Buddy's kind of falling out, and Buddy leaving, that part feels kind of rushed. It feels like everything was building up nicely, but then that's when everything's full steam ahead at sprinting towards the finish. I do wish the movie is about an hour and a half. I do wish they got a little bit more time to really make the back part of the movie not feel as rushed. Like have Buddy and Walter kind of reconcile, then Santa's sleigh crashes, then they kind of help him out. Have the Central Park Rangers introduced a bit earlier. They're introduced, I think, way too late in the movie. To kind of give them an antagonist is, I think a movie not necessarily having an antagonist, I think probably would have worked better. The Central Park Rangers are kind of close to antagonistic in terms of like being main antagonists opposing the main characters, but I think they come too late to really flesh that out. I think this movie would have worked well if it didn't really have a central antagonist. There are some movies that don't really have central antagonist, like somebody who's kind of like quote unquote the villain, and I think this movie definitely should have had them. Like the Central Park Rangers, it's something you can kind of take or leave when it comes to just have like Santa Slate crash, and he has to, and they don't believe in Christmas anymore. So then, or don't believe in Santa Claus anymore, or so. They eventually start believing again with the singing, and then Santa gets powered up in the air. I think that part would have worked, but trying to introduce late game the Central Park Rangers as kind of antagonists, as kind of quote unquote villains in a way, I don't think really he gelled out that well. Hell didn't quite work as well. So I would have liked to seen it paced a little bit better, because you see the antics and everything, and you see kind of the relationship between Walter and Buddy kind of coming up, but then Walter essentially, when he sees his other son, kind of does kind of a quick 180, having him kind of slow burn build up to that, realize the error of his ways, instead of just having it be quick like that and then full speed ahead towards the end of the movie. To have it build up and be more gradual, I think probably would have worked a little bit better, because he doesn't really warm up to Buddy until the movie's pretty much over, until his son says that Buddy's missing. If we had seen Walter slowly warm up to Buddy to where he feels guilty for his actions, I think that would have worked a little bit better. Now, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm alone on that. If I am, please let me know. And if I am, I definitely more than accept that, because it might be unpopular. But nevertheless, still a pretty fun movie for the most part. And I would say for the most part, I do definitely recommend it. But nevertheless, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor. like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see it as soon as it drops. And let me know in the comments what your thoughts on Elf and my review of Elf. Did you like the movie? Did you like my review of the movie? Let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. Excuse me, and I will see you guys later. Peace.